and making our plans for the upcoming session.
That's exciting. And I just want everyone to know that, through, I would say the last month or two, and I had never actually met you in person, but we had texted and emailed, and Senator Miller had kind of connected with us. But when you might recall, we'd had some discussions about issues at the post office and how all of that was playing out. And, all of you should know that Melissa was, I feel like I want to call you Senator because that's cool. I'll say Melissa for now, and we'll get to the more dramatic part later. But she was part of that. She was part of that discussion. So it's not like she's coming into this cold turkey. Like, she has been with this process and very well versed on what's going on. Just so that everybody knows, I just want to go through some of the committees that you've served on, because there's quite a few really interesting and diverse. But it looks like the Committee on Audit, on Mental Health, on Science and Technology, Small Business Development, Substance Abuse and Prevention, Information Policy and Technology, Legislative Audit Committee, and the Speaker's Task Force on Suicide Prevention. Are we missing any of those? Is there anything that's not listed? That's a lot.
That is a lot. And earlier in my time in the Assembly, I also served on the Energy and Utilities Committee. And I think there's a couple others that are on there. But, really, when you're in the Assembly, you get a nice opportunity to serve on quite a few different committees and get a real sense of how government is working. And that Audit Committee is something special, because you have the ability to talk to all the different branches of government, all the different service agencies in our government, and hear directly from the public servants on what's working and what's not working. And it's really a pragmatic, nonpartisan committee where we roll up our sleeves and work across the aisle in the best interest of Wisconsin. So that, I'm hopeful that in the Senate, I can go back to that one.
I think that's, that would be my word for the day, is hopeful. And I'm hopeful for many things, but the most hopeful I am is that we can reach across the aisle and come together. And I think our goals are similar to some extent. We need to come through this pandemic. We need to get to the other side. We need to keep small businesses and strong, and our kids healthy, and all of those types of things. So just to back up a little bit for those that don't know you, just if you can give us the brief, who are you? I know you're a mom of 4 and a small, or are a small business owner. Can you just give us a brief little about you, if you would?
Absolutely. So I was born and raised here in Madison, and I went to the University of Wisconsin-Madison as well, and received my bachelor's degree in psychology. I worked for my dad in a small business and helped him manage his business for many years. And after that, I was a business owner and he was my employee. We kind of switched spots. And then after I ran for the legislature, the business portion of it started kind of taking a back seat, and he took over the majority of it, but now he's getting older and I'm busy in government. So having been a business owner and having to have, balance payroll, putting your employees, your vendors, it seems like business owners always put themselves last in these types of situations. On top of the fact that I am the mom of 4 sons who are 22, 20, 15, and 10. I think we're really amazing teachers for me, being a small business owner and knowing how to listen to my clients when they come in and hear what it is that they needed, as well as knowing the trade and finding ways to thread those needles, as well as coming home, raising my kids. Actually, in my small business, 3 of my babies had cribs in the business and came to work with me for quite a while. So they grew up around that. And then the youngest one grew up as I've been campaigning and as I've been an elected official. And those boys are as different as the points on a compass. And they, somehow, as a mom, you kind of figure out how to have as much peace as you can at home, as well as making sure that everyone is engaged and doing their fair share. So taking those skills into the Capitol building, working with my colleagues, not only across the aisle, but also within my own party, I believe has provided me with some of the best teaching opportunities so that I was able to come in as an elected official and really engage with my constituents, as well as be someone who wants to be very collaborative and find where it is that we can get things done. And as an assembly representative, I've served in the assembly for 4 terms, so almost 8 years. I've been pretty successful in passing bills and solving problems for my constituents. Not everything that we do in the Capitol building is about writing a bill and getting it passed. That's actually a very small portion of what it is that we do. A lot of the work that we do is when people, business owners and constituents call our offices, email our offices, and they have something they need help with, help untangling. And that's one of the things that I love the very most about being an elected official. Everything is different every single day. You wake up thinking it's going to be one way, and the world changes. So when Senator Miller announced in January that he wasn't going to run again to serve the people of the 16th Senate District, I had some pretty serious thinking to do. I love serving in the assembly, but the ability to get to know even more of the state of Wisconsin and fall more in love with our state and our community, and grow connections with more of a diverse part of the state. In the assembly, my district is very urban. It's the city of Madison and the village of Maple Bluff. But in the assembly, we have Fitchburg and Monona and Cottage Grove and Stoughton and some Prairie and McFarland and, farms in between, as well as the city of Madison. So I am super excited about having the opportunity to work with all of you, figure out how it is that we lift our state up. And certainly it's really been a struggle. Normally during a campaign cycle, I would have been able to do business tours. I would have been able to sit down and have coffee with you, hear from you what it is that's working and what's not working. And unfortunately, because of COVID, it really just hasn't been safe for any of us to run a campaign in that way. So we've been relegated to an awful lot of Zoom calls and an awful lot of phone calls. But now that we're moving forward past the election cycle, I'm going to start doing some engagement and outreach into the district, and look forward to being able to partner with you all and knowing how it is that I can support you and the people.
That's great. And we will look forward to that as well, because I do think, again, as we look forward and look hopeful, that we have to put, our heads together and figure out how we're going to get through this together. One of the things I think, and Joe Parisi says this all the time, is when you're in a role such as his, and now the role that you'll be in next, is you have to have a little bit of healthy adult ADD. You're going from one thing to the other, right? And it is very much like having children, and especially 4 children, right? I would imagine that has really given you great training moving forward.
It absolutely has. And, it's a matter of balancing. You never know who is going to need what most at any specific period of time. You all know that in the roles that you play in our community. So, making sure that you're taking care of the base and making sure that everyone has what they need in order to be safe and secure. That is a very important theme, something that we all need to be thinking about, whether it's about ourselves, our family, our employees, our customers as they're coming in. We want to make sure that they are safe and secure, but we also need to be thinking about how it is that we can increase prosperity for everyone, for our businesses, as well as our families and our kids. We want to make sure that everyone can continue to dream and reach for their dreams, even with the challenges that we're facing. And we have seen a lot of ingenuity and unique opportunities through the pandemic. Now, certainly a lot of it has been really terrible. I can't wait until I can hug someone again. I desperately want to hug my dad. I want to be able to go out and visit with my girlfriends in a safe way. Maybe even go out and dress up and go dancing at some point in time, but that's not safe right now. However, there are a lot of things that we have done through this pandemic that I think that we are going to end up rolling into good business practices and ways to be good neighbors and friends. And realizing that we're never going to go back to the way it was. That creativity and ingenuity are super important, and being able to learn from what it is that we have been experiencing over the past 7-8 months is really important, right? I mean, our kids, I just think about my kids and the ways they're taking care of themselves and reaching out to their friends with their digital devices, where 9 months ago, they had a digital device in front of their face for more than an hour at a time, I was going crazy, right? And now I see that as their lifeline. And I very much know that there are stories like that all of us in all parts of our life, personal and professional, can point to the benefits as well as the challenges, right? But let's look at the glasses half full part of it.
Absolutely. We've talked about in the past, right? Like how many of us would have ever gotten on a Zoom, like at the first time you used it, it was like, oh my gosh, I need a password. There's a little bit of frantic something, but now, we've done it. And now there's several formats and some of them, they're just getting better and better at it. And we're all pivoting a little bit. We're all learning a little bit more. I want to talk a little bit about, we before you had jumped on, we were talking about PPP and that we're all going through this forgiveness portion of PPP. Who knows when the next round is going to come, but assuming that it will at some point, which will be a great relief. We hope that it's, an amount that gets folks through what we think will probably be another year. But with that being said, and we're grateful for the dollars we've had, the We're All In phase 1 and phase 2 from the state. But the reality of it is the first round was $2,500. This next is up to, I believe, $5,000. And not everybody's going to get it. And I serve as vice chair on the Small Business Regulatory Review Board. So I realize, with that being said, we have to be somewhat careful, but the funds from a state perspective have been less than they have been through the county. And I worry a little about that. What are your thoughts in terms of how can we go after more dollars from the state? I look at it and say, gosh, with the Dane County grant, they were between 2,500, 1,000 was the lowest, up to 7,500. And most of them fell in that $4,500 range. That's more than the state did during the same period of time. How do you see that getting any better as we move forward?
Well, certainly it has been super challenging in taking care of our businesses and, how your business is classified. If you're a corporation, if you're an LLC, if you're a sole proprietorship, it is easier and more challenging as well. And we absolutely need to realize that our small businesses are really the bread and butter. They are the main streets of Wisconsin. And that is where we have our families, you all have, many of you have employees that are working for you and you want to be able to take care of them. They become part of your family through that process. In my opinion, it is really important that we are making sure that we are taking care of our Wisconsin grown businesses and are not forgetting about our smaller businesses and, people in the hospitality industry and, those that have been really challenged by COVID. And it's all about priorities. And, frankly, I think if the legislature did come in, if we had come in at some point in time and, more than once during the pandemic and actually taken seriously the challenges that our businesses and our schools were experiencing, that we would be in a much better place. Certainly, we don't need to be where we are right now for many different reasons. And we can talk about public health or, supportive businesses or families, unemployment insurance, even for many employees. When I talk to folks, they are reaching out to me on behalf of their staff, their employees who have not been able to gain access to unemployment. So that's even another layer beyond the PPP. I really do hope that with the new administration at the federal level, that we do have more of an investment in our small businesses and that, our Wisconsin state legislature, now that the campaign cycle is past us, that we can actually roll up our sleeves and see what it is that unites us and how it is that we can all make our community stronger and come forward and take some action. In Wisconsin, the governor is pretty handicapped on what it is that he can and can't do in regards to supporting our communities. Many times he takes action here, and my colleagues in the legislature go to the courts and try to take some of the power away from him. And if they would have a plan and we could come forward in the legislature and actually implement that plan, I think we would all do better. And, I'm a proud, unapologetic Democrat. And I know that, that is, in my opinion, it's not about partisan politics in this case. It's about how it is that we take care of one another. And that means allowing the democratic process to take place. That means allowing us to actually draw bills, debate bills, amend bills, and pass bills in the best interest of the people of our state of Wisconsin, and giving lots of money away to corporations like Foxconn. We're, at this point, the state is saying, we don't want to give you any more money. You have to prove to us that you've actually created these jobs. Making sure that if we are putting money out into our community, into businesses, that if they aren't doing what it is that they promised that they would do, that there's a clawback. So the money can go to businesses that are actually investing in our communities and into the prosperity of our state. We need to lift one another up rather than continue fighting. And, again, I'm going to be hopeful that we can get there. I am hearing from folks across political spectrums at all levels, at the federal, state, and local level, that supporting our small businesses and, and our schools is priority right now as we navigate this pandemic.
Yeah, and I like all of what you said. We had Senator Andre Jacques on last week, and before I jump into this, just a reminder: if you have questions, go ahead and put them in the chat. I see there are a couple coming through, but and Andre was just saying, when we said, gosh, you haven't met for 100 days, like, what's the plan? I think it's one thing, and I'm not criticizing him, but more the process. It's one thing to say, gosh, we need to help our small businesses, but when you don't show up, it's hard to act on that. So, since Democrats are in the minority, how do we do anything here? I mean, what's troublesome, right? Small businesses and especially in Dane County with the mandates in place to protect us, but even from a statewide perspective, how do we move forward through this pandemic when we have a group saying you can't do this? They're fighting to take, quite frankly, the health of our state away, even in these crazy numbers we're having, but yet there's no resolution. They're not offering, in my opinion, a solution. There seems to be, we don't like this and it stops, instead of we don't like this and we would suggest this instead. There doesn't seem to be that. So how, as a minority, do you work with them to find something where there's common ground to keep our people healthy, get our businesses back up and running?
That's a super important question that I continue to ask myself. And it's going to be even harder, frankly, because of COVID, for the legislature to gain the trust of the members so that we can solve those problems. In my experience, in my time in the Capitol building, the way it is that I have been successful in getting bills passed or solving problems for people in my community is being able to walk into my colleagues' offices and sit down and have a conversation eyeball to eyeball. Seeing folks in the hallways and, exchanging pleasantries and seeing, you are someone who, just as a human being, and we do have things in common, and being able to build that trust with one another in order to be able to move forward. And how it is that we build trust in this reality is super challenging. I have raised my hand. I've said, I'll be available for Zoom. I'll meet you in the Capitol building. We can take a socially distant walk. Let's solve this. Saying we can't do what our public health experts are asking us to do, and then not providing an alternative, I think is very, very damaging. And Wisconsin is unique amongst all of the states. We have the least amount of support coming from our state government to our businesses and to our schools and to our local communities on how it is that we navigate through COVID. So I am hopeful. President-elect Biden did announce that he is creating a task force starting today on how it is that we as a nation move forward given the COVID pandemic. And I am really hopeful that in that blueprint that he is going to be providing us, that he is being thoughtful not only about vaccines and hospitalization and personal protective gear, but also supporting our small businesses and our kids and our seniors as we move forward. I think we all are struggling with some mental health challenges right now, additionally, right? Like we have to be okay with saying it, removing that stigma, right? Like, what is it that we miss? How is it that we go forward? And unfortunately, here in Wisconsin, we haven't met in the Capitol building. I haven't even seen a bill drafted by my Republican colleagues on how it is that they would like things to look. The Democrats have put out a couple of different policies supporting our healthcare workers, supporting businesses, supporting schools, and they haven't gone anywhere, unfortunately. So I am hopeful that this isn't just a lame duck session where nothing happens. And I do encourage all of you, because it does matter, it does make a difference when you reach out to your elected officials and you let us know, we are struggling because you are not acting. And it is our job as elected officials to hear you all. You're the bosses of us at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day. I mean, that's the way it works, is the people of our communities are our bosses. And I'm not saying point your finger at folks and say, gosh darn it, this is what you need to do. But, democracy is not a spectator sport. Democracy is something that you have to participate in. And if there are things that would be super helpful to you all as business owners in our community, reach out to us and let us know. Don't just say this isn't working. It is helpful to me when I can hear what can we propose or what can we do to try and solve that. Because again, some of this we can work with the Evers administration through the departments, and they do have some latitude on what it is that they can do in order to support. It doesn't always have to be done through the legislative action. And I have been able to be successful by reaching out to the governor and his staff at the different agencies in order to solve problems for other businesses and constituents. I'm here right now. If anyone has something that they want to suggest that would help out, please let me know. Otherwise, reach out and, we should be working together in order to move Wisconsin forward.
Yeah, I like that a lot. And, as you were mentioning, just talking about coming together, and sometimes it's just about saying, okay, here are some ideas, and then not everybody gets what they want, but there's somewhere in between. And maybe it's, our group and Dane by Local and some in our chambers where we get together, we make a list. And, just in the spirit of moving forward, the chair of our board is Andre Jacques, and maybe he and you and I can do a Zoom and we can cover some of these so we can come away with something versus just sitting here and waiting for something to happen. And so again, if you're open to that, and it's just one idea, but that might be something that would be helpful, because I do think, he does want to help small businesses or he wouldn't be on that board. And I think we've seen that from him. So maybe there's some common ground there.
Absolutely. And Andre and I have, we work well together. I mean, there is a lot of stuff that we don't see eye to eye on, but we do work well together. And he is earnest about being a servant of the people of the state of Wisconsin. And I would be pleased and honored to come together if you want to pull that together, Peggy.
That'd be great. I mean, he's quite a prolific proposal legislator too. He takes great pride in that he probably writes more than anyone else. Question coming through, Melissa. I hear various sources asking Republican-controlled legislators, I think there's small groups saying this, to send electors to the Electoral College to go against the popular vote in their state and cast those votes for the current president. Then I see Robin Voss is asking for an investigation into the recent election procedures. I think the chances of the election going against the votes of the people of Wisconsin are slim, but how can we ensure that doesn't happen? Great question.
So Wisconsin does have a heritage of fair, honest, and ethical elections. And the fact, I think one of the reasons, I mean, this is an example of one of the reasons why it is that we have separation of power. Our elections are overseen by our local levels of government, by our municipalities, so our cities, towns, and villages. And then they are supported by our counties. And then the elections commission on top of that makes sure that everyone is trained and is doing what they need to be doing. I very much in Wisconsin, especially, and across our nation, frankly, am so grateful to all of our clerks who have been there on the front lines, making sure that our elections are fair, and that all of the votes are being counted. And, yes, it is going a little slower than, than during some election cycles, but that's because everyone wants to make sure that they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. It is vital for our nation to make sure that our elections are fair. And it's really important that we don't get lost in the rhetoric. There are not truckloads of ballots being found dumped in ditches. That's fact check this information. In Wisconsin, that did not happen. And there were people saying that happened right here in the state of Wisconsin. And we really we need to value the power of our vote and those clerks and what it is that they are doing. And if you have questions about how the electoral process works, and I think a lot of people are rising up and having some of that curiosity, I encourage people to sign up to be a poll worker or an observer at the polls during the elections this spring. And I believe that if you do that, you will see that it is a fair process. And, I am one that does believe supports popular vote, moving away from the Electoral College. But the Electoral College is where we are right now. And it is very clear, even through the Electoral College, as well as through the popular vote, that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have won this election.
Yeah. And I've heard also from poll workers, it's incredibly gratifying. A friend of mine actually drives ballots in a car with a car behind her and a car in front of her. And she just said it's very gratifying when you deliver those, no matter which side you're on, but that you're part of that process. I should also mention too, and we couldn't mention it last week, but we had several postal workers, as you guys know, throughout the last number of months, sending photos of what was going on in the Milwaukee post office. And we forwarded those photos on to both Mark Pocan and Tammy Baldwin. In the last set, this particular postal worker was concerned about ballots being where they shouldn't be, et cetera. And management caught wind that they had reached out. They cleaned it up. Tammy's office was able to get federal inspectors into, I believe, 2 of the post offices, the Oak Creek and the downtown. They did a sweep, which basically means like they come in. I didn't realize, but these are armed folks that come in and they do a sweep and they look for these ballots, and they found nothing. They had been already moved through the process by the time they got there. And so they got where they needed to go, point being. But there are things that you can do when you hear or see, and we need to report these kinds of things. And so the appropriate people can take action, which they did a sweep, all was good. So, and I think that happened in several areas around the country where workers were saying, this is what's going on. So incredibly, incredibly important. On to something a little lighter. How does the process happen of you transitioning into Senator Miller's seat? Do you get together with him on an ongoing basis? How do you begin to get the information that you need to begin your job on day one?
So Senator Miller and I have a lovely relationship. He's been a friend and mentor to me for many years. And he has assured me that he's not going away. He'll be available. I have his cell phone number. And, certainly if it wasn't for COVID, we'd be sitting down in the Capitol building and talking about things on a more personal level. So I know that he is going to be there for us, for the district. And I'm not just going to be left out there. Now, I do have a bit of a benefit having served the 48th Assembly District for 8 years. So that's a third of the population within the Senate District. And I get to bring all that knowledge, those skills, those relationships with me into the Senate. And there is a transfer of information as well, digital information and constituent information. The Miller office will decide what it is that they think is appropriate to share. And then the technical service people will help to provide that transfer of information forward. And, additionally, there's a caucus of other senators that I can lean on. Every one of us does things in a different way. There's no playbook that says, okay, now you've been elected. This is what you do on day one. This is what you do on day two. In some ways, that is wildly frustrating because I remember as a freshman walking into the building and I wasn't even sure where the bathroom was. How to go to a committee meeting, how do you speak, so there's a lot of knowledge by fire hose, you just kind of walk in and, it's shot at you and you figure it out as you go along. But there's an awful lot of people who are there, whether they're previously elected, whether it's the staff for those elected officials or the nonpartisan staff in the Capitol building, there to support us as we go along this process. And like I said, we're going to start caucusing. The Senate Democrats are going to start caucusing this week, coming up with our plan as we move forward. I had an opportunity to meet with Governor Evers on Friday to talk about budget priorities for the upcoming budget. And, that was refreshing to have had that opportunity this early in the process as well. So, it's a matter of, being bold, but also being curious and making sure that curiosity is, I'm not just out there asking questions, but I'm actually folding it together into action.
And thank you for acting so quickly, because I realize, with the election on Tuesday and you're already hitting the ground running on Friday, that's really impressive. I assume during COVID, will there be a swearing in ceremony? Will it be virtual? Do you know?
I don't know that yet. I am not sure if I'll learn more about that when we have our first caucus or if they're going to wait a little bit. I've asked leadership in the assembly because certainly I still have connections there. If we're going to be doing it via Zoom or if they're going to have people come in to the Capitol building and in smaller numbers and do it in, in small groups. I think there's a lot of ways that they could do it. And I'm curious to see how it is that that leadership, as well as the clerk's offices within the Senate and the Assembly, I'm sure they're going to be working very closely with each other to figure out what is in the best interest of safety. I also think about, it's not only about us and our families about being sworn in, but we've got pages in the Capitol and photographers in the Capitol and the cleaning folks in the Capitol. There's a lot of people that are there every single day. They don't have the ability to work from home the way I do. And we need to make sure that their workspace stays safe for them as well.
Yes, and your supporters. I mean, folks that have worked on your team to be able to celebrate, I think is important. So yeah, I want to get a little creative and find out how we can pop the champagne virtually, right? So,
and in August after the primary, I had a little driveway party where some of my friends and neighbors and supporters came over, and we all stood, 6 feet away with masks and popped the champagne. Some people drove by and honked their horns and stuff. But, in January, it's going to be a little bit too cold for us to do that.
Might need a bonfire or something just to keep warm, or several bonfires. But I don't see any other questions in the queue, but I just want to offer to you, and I will certainly reach out by email and see after we've had an opportunity to talk to members from Dane by Local, but, how we can get together with Andre and kind of get things to happen for small businesses as we meander through this and not allow things to happen to us, but proactively see what we can do together. And then just so that the door is always open to this group, to myself, to Colin, to all the chambers throughout the area. But, if there's anything that we can do to help you, that helps the state, this county, our businesses move forward, we are here to help you as well. And I think that type of partnership will hopefully turn into progress.
Absolutely. I really appreciated the invitation to join you. I apologize for being a little bit tardy, and appreciate your kindness and understanding with that, as we're all trying to balance all the balls that are in the air in our lives right now. But I am absolutely thrilled and honored to be able to serve my community as the next state senator, and make sure that we are bringing the voices of our small businesses forward. frankly, Wisconsin has a history of really investing in our main streets, investing in our home businesses, investing in one another and lifting each other up. And that's how we have been successful. We need to put, I call it the trash outside. And we need to be able to move forward, roll up our sleeves, and figure out how it is to support one another. And the fact that you all have already, the establishment that you have, I really appreciate the open door and the fact that you are welcoming me into the conversations that you are having, because I know that will only help me advocate for all of us in a better way. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, and best of luck. We look forward to finding out how you'll celebrate, and we'll be celebrating with you. And we look forward to a partnership down the road, Melissa. And are you teaching math class today with your kids, or are you?
I think there's viola, and that would be I think I might have to take a field trip when that actually is happening.
And it's a good day for it. 70 degrees. It is a good day for a field trip. Enjoy. And again, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Colin?
Yeah, I'll echo Peggy's thoughts there as well. As far as Dane by Local is concerned, we look forward to working with you in the years to come, and I'm sure there'll be opportunity for us to call on you and see what we can do to work together. So I'm glad to see that this is coming together. We've had a good relationship with Mark in the past, so we look forward to working with you as well. So one other thing, and this will be of interest to some of you, totally forgot to mention this at the beginning. The City of Madison does have a new grant program that was just released that will be of interest to you. Now, it is a little bit limited on who can get into this, but it's a two-part grant program. The first part is up to $5,000 to reimburse businesses for COVID-related expenses for taking on PPP or signage in your building or a ventilation system that needed to be added, things of that nature that can be reimbursed. The second part is more general, like the grant program that we handled through Dane by Local on just regular business expenses that you're having trouble paying, the rent, payroll, those sorts of things. And that's up to $5,000. So it could be up to a $10,000 grant through the City of Madison. You do have to be a business in the City of Madison. You have to have revenues under $750,000. And it is limited, and I'm going to look at my notes here to make sure I get this right. As far as the type of businesses that qualify for this, you need to be one of the following categories: low-income populations, people of color, immigrants, women, veterans, or an LGBT individual. So those are the ones that qualify for this program through the City of Madison. We will be putting this on Facebook. We'll have it in our newsletter. If you want to reach out to me, I can send you the link. This will be an ongoing program that will be out there. It was just announced. I got the information on Friday, so it just was announced. The first deadline is coming up very quickly tomorrow, so the 10th. They will make decisions by the 20th, and their plan is to have checks mailed by the 30th of November. So the turnaround is very quick on this. They will do the same thing in December as well. It'll be December 10th for the deadline, 20th for decisions, and 30th for the checks being mailed out. And their intention is to continue doing this into next year. So right now, they've got November and December that are set up, and then rebooting the program in January of next year. So if you would like more information, watch Facebook, watch our newsletter, send me an email, and we'll get you linked up as far as getting that going. And yeah, so it's a good program for those that qualify within those categories. So sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier in our program today. So thank you everyone for joining us. We appreciate you being here. We'll see you again next Monday, 10 o'clock, right here on Zoom. Thanks everyone. Have a great day.
Have a good day, everyone.